Hello, my dear friend, and welcome to the Spiritually Engineered Podcast, where we take a deep dive into the human experience from a spiritual perspective. Come on in, and I invite you to stay. All right, so now we're in the new month, and today is May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. Anyway, so we're at that time of the month for the Wayshowers Philosophy. Get into a little deep meditation this time around. And so looking into the month that we're currently in, May 2026, the theme of the month is belong. Now, what's interesting about the meditation that the college provides and the wording of the theme here, it's spelled B-E-L-O-N-G. And we're going to talk about that in a bit. But looking at that key word before I dive into the meditation, let's kind of take that apart a little bit. Or let's analyze and dissect. Well, at least from our intellectual perspective. So when it comes to the word belong, in terms of like the verb definition here, it's interesting. It says to be in the relation of a member, adherent, inhabitant, etc. Usually followed by to, or to have the proper qualifications, especially social qualifications, to be a member of a group. Or another definition is to be proper or due, be properly or appropriately placed, situated, etc. And some other interesting definitions is to be bound to a person, place, or club by ties of affection, dependence, allegiance, or membership, which is kind of rephrasing another way of what I shared earlier, or to be classified with. Anyway, that's enough of the definition of the word belong. Now, as far as looking at it from an experience point of view, my feeling part, for me, that sense of belonging that I get is with the people that I connect with, the people that, personally for me, that we share common spiritual practices, working with our intuition, how to make it practical, working in communication with our spiritual helpers. Like, I consider those kind of people my tribe, because that's how I show up. They're they're the people that to me truly get what I'm going through. I'm not saying it's just exclusively them, but just when it just comes to the living experience here on this planet, that I feel really comfortable, especially with particular people that I've met here, that just here meaning like the good old folks at the Wayshowers College, because we're all over the place, we're all over the world, international. But particularly the people that I've met here in the U.S. have been super awesome, and with that feeling of belonging, I've also tapped into that feeling of oneness, and so there's that helping me to unfold that myself to the extent that I can take that with me in all my opportunities, whether I'm going to the store or if I'm going to a concert, I'm going to hang out with some friends, going to work, taking that feeling of belonging everywhere I go. And I think that's such an important thing, and I might talk about that a bit later. But before I do that, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, and take a moment for yourself and kind of define if you could define that word belong in your own definition, right? Like how I did it. What would that be? What would that be? And then, of course, what is your personal experience related to that word belong? And I'm just simply sharing that for you to work that with yourself, right? You know what I mean? Obviously, you don't have to. You're not sharing it for me, but just I'm inviting you to do that for yourself, for your own journaling, meditative practices. And so, without further ado, I will get into the meditation. And so, particularly the meditation that we're going to look at, the excerpt, is going to be around the sub-key theme word, the sub-key word, zenith. Belong in purpose, and the zenith will only grow. Choose a job you love, and you will never have to work a day in your life. If I ever find myself not doing what I love, It is vital to put love into what I am doing now. This will guide me towards doing what I love, my niche. Without doubt, like attracts like, so that if I bitch, complain, and reject my opportunities, I will create a downward spiral of negativity and I will attract those kind of things. It's not hard. It's just gravity. Nothing in the forest grows perfectly straight, yet all the trees reach for the sun and grow up. The same for me. To reach a zenith of my energy and potential, I need to grow and put love in. And here's a little secret. The more I love to grow, likewise does that zenith of energy expand. There are no limitations. All right, so that was the end of that meditation there. And like many things, there's so much to unpack on this one in particular. So let's pivot back and start with that sense of belonging. That key theme word, belong. That's such an important thing for each and every single one of us. That is a genuine need. It is one of the reasons why we are described as social creatures. And why community is such a powerful force. But also on the same token, it can also be, at least the community aspect, a tool for something not so good. Because there are communities around different things. But nevertheless, regardless of the intent or the cause perhaps of the community, if anything, nothing denies the fact that it's a genuine need that we have, and it just goes back to our need to feel one with everything. And that's part of the journey of why we're here on this planet. That is what our spiritual helpers, your team of spiritual helpers, that is what they mastered when they were here. They were able to really work with that feeling of oneness and tuning into that reality in their daily life. But it's interesting how there can be a bit of a conflict of interest, because one example is like looking at it from the sense of belonging and self-expression. And I know when it comes to self-expression, everybody's got their quirks and their things, right? And I think there's this concept of like weird versus normal. A lot of judgment there. I remember a dear friend of mine, shout out to Serena, she shared a little post of her just dancing and just being herself. And she kind of threw in a clip afterwards of like this actor talking about embarrassment is one of those underexplored emotions of all time or something like that. I'm paraphrasing to an extent, but basically getting into like, when it comes to expressing myself and just recognizing that I'm, I can be cringy to other people, and just like the thought of just dealing with the judgments of other people is not a pleasant thing. And it feels very the opposite of belonging. I feel like an exile. I feel separated, from the community type of thing. And I find that so fascinating, because we all want to belong, like we need that. But how many of us, for the sake of belonging, being a part of a group, do we compromise our own selves, our own unique, weird little quirks that each and every single one of us have? If you're listening to this, you have your own quirks too. You have the things that perhaps some people could judge as weird, but it's who you are. And let me be the first, if I'm not, to say that that's okay. I love you and accept you as you are right now, as you're listening to this. I mean it, and that's a very important thing that, when I mentioned earlier about bringing that feeling of belonging into all my opportunities, because one of the things that I can struggle with, I like to post, and from time to time I try to post on social media, and I'm all about, promoting the positive outlook, optimistic. I try to share, my teachings and stuff. What was passed on to me, I pass on to others. And I can have issues of posting, of sharing anything, because of just like the fear of like not belonging to people. And sometimes that can come up in the form of like, oh, I didn't get a lot of likes on this post I made. oh, I don't belong. Like just to give an example, right, on social media, that was something that I actually experienced recently that was like affecting me. Now I know in someone at some level, I know it seems ridiculous, but remember, like at least what I understand is like we can understand and push our intellectual part to understand a lot of things as much as possible. But as far as our feeling part, we can't push that in terms of like relating it to our own growth and evolution. So it's, I don't know, like another way of putting it is like sometimes I get something and then I don't get it because like when it comes down to the experience, no matter what I think about the situation, like knowing that I know better, like yeah, I shouldn't be so allow likes to validate me. Yet when I'm experiencing seeing that, or like, oh, I made this post and not many people liked it, or I only just got one or two likes and that's it, I'm not worthy. Like the experience itself tells me something exactly differently. And oftentimes is a clear indicator of exactly where I'm at. So all that's to say, for me, I have an awareness of a lot of things that I know I wish I could be in a better place, but I'm not. I know better, but when I'm in those situations, I'm like, frustrated because I'm feeling these things that are like have yet to unfold. And so the key in what I'm sharing on all this, I don't know if you can relate with this. This is where it's important to have patience with myself because I have my own spiritual timing as much as you do. Everybody grows at their own pace. There's no one greater nor lesser than anybody else. There is no there's no such thing as being ahead or behind in life. That's bullshit. That is not a thing. That is such a immature high school mentality or type of thing. We all have our own unique journey. You have your own unique journey. And what's in store for you in your life and what it has to offer you are much more blessings. And even what the challenges that may come up is there for you. It's there for you. I say this from my experience. I'm not doing this to say it for the sake of saying it. I wouldn't share it if I didn't believe it so. So if you find yourself in comparison, and like I said, I know better. Comparing is stupid. But when I'm brought in certain situations, oh shit, oh man, finding myself comparing myself again. It happens. And again, it's okay. That I'm learning is a part of the whole freaking process. Is a part of the whole process, the growth process. The part that I know I can learn to really be more at ease and relax with. So it's interesting that belonging and then the self-expression being myself. So it's like, how can I fulfill that genuine need to belong? Because I'm sure there are some people that perhaps are built different, that they can be hermits their whole lives and they're fine. But most of us, in my opinion, need some interactions with people. We need that community, need the fellowship, the camaraderie, and even like companionship. That is a need too. But then it's like there's that, and then it's like, how can I fulfill that? And then in all my relationships, retain my own sense of my own personal autonomy. My own sense of personal autonomy. Because that also needs to be honored too. I don't want to just like become a part of something to the extent that I lose myself in the community. Because then that's where we get into some kind of cultish type stuff. You know what you know when I've come to learn about cults is like generally one of the things that it teaches, like the main distinctions about cults. Number one, they instill this idea that the authority figure, your answers are outside of you, and it falls upon some actually like it's. Let me strip it down basically. At least for the first point, it's like this idea that your answers are outside of you, not within you. But the reality is, you have the answers within you for yourself. And number two, I mentioned it earlier, but it's like this dependence, like, oh, you have to rely on one person and they're the end all be all authority figure on everybody else, making them infallible or all this. When everybody's true authority, your true authority is yourself. You have autonomy. You are like your own universe. No one has authority over you, especially on how to live your life. I don't have a right to tell you how to live your life. I'm sure you know that. But what about the people you care about saying something to you? Like, do this, do that. How do you feel about that? Because in my experience, those that I care about, loved ones, are areas where I can feel a little bit challenged in this. Like, let me listen to, like my mom and my dad, I love them to bits, I love them so much and I appreciate them, But I understand I'm not going to live my life according to what they want. I mean, I'm not going to live my life according to what they want, but I understand that deep down they want me to be successful. They want me to do well, right? It's like looking at the tiny grain of truth in everything. I don't know what your relationship with your parents are or your loved ones or whatever, but especially in those situations, to maintain your own inner authority, your own inner leadership, because that is rightfully yours. No one can take that from you. You can only give it to somebody else. And even if you find yourself you're in that situation where you've given your authority to someone else, you can always come back home and remember, hey, I'm my own inner authority. No one tells me what to do. No one tells me how to live my life. So that's a very interesting little conflict thing that can happen, and why it's important to navigate. And what I mentioned earlier, just like that feeling of belonging. How can I feel, like I said, how can I belong? How can I feel like that sense of belonging without compromising myself? And that's something that, it's always a practice. And it's like, I have areas for myself that I'm doing well in regarding that. But then there are other areas where it's like, ooh, I don't feel quite as that sense of belonging and still retaining my own autonomy. And that's okay. That's part of the nuances of life, right? I'm sure you have some areas where you feel that sense of belonging and you still feel centered in yourself at the same time. But then perhaps there might be something, a partner, or maybe a community that you care so much about, or your job perhaps, that you give your loyalty to the extent that you leave yourself out. But again, let me tell you, my friend, when it comes to our relationships, the single most important relationship that needs to take priority is your relationships with yourself, your loyalty to self. That is the starting point to everything. And that's why it's essential. It's not about, so then me first, me second, me third. No. I'm just saying is that when you relate and you show up in your experiences, it starts from your relationship with yourself first. That affects your relationship with others. That affects all your other relationships, basically. That's why I stress and emphasize, when I look at life, when I look just like part of the journey, it's like we're working on and cultivating that relationship with ourselves to be our own ally rather than just being our own enemy. Because please tell me, how does that help and serve anybody in any capacity? Or look to your own experiences where you can look at where you've been working against yourself. That can show up like, when I'm working against myself. For me, an example, when I focus so much on the damn negative things in my life, like, this is not going right, this is not, why did this happen? Focusing on the minute of negativity, that to me is like a way when I work against myself, when I have so much working for me. And I would argue and say the same is for you. I don't know who you are. You're listening to this. I don't know you. But I can bet you have a lot of good things going for you than you think. I would put money into that any day. Why? Again, because it's such a theme and a freaking reminder in my life. Wow, I seem to have a lot of good things going that I seem to recognize. And why is that the case? Judgment. The thing that can cut me off from that sense of belonging, whether it's the judgment from other people or how I judge myself and I just cut myself off. And this is where it's important to work with the thoughts that come up and the feelings. And this is why from the inner world perspective of what happens in my inner world, why it's important for me to work on my relationship with myself. Because if I don't pivot from that inside out, that's when I know I become at the mercy of anybody. Someone can say something, all of a sudden I break. I break down and cry and just get emotional. Or, it's just building that security from within. Now, that is to say, like I said, everything has a place. I mentioned and emphasize a lot of the inner and within. But again, just to make this clear, I'm not saying like forget community or anything like that. Like I said earlier, we need that. That is a genuine need that we all have, because it goes back to feeling one with. That's that's a commonality of why we're all here to begin with. Agree to disagree. That's how I show up. That's part of my secret ingredient that helps me in all my life situation. And I've been through a lot of shit. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you've been through a lot too. And so I share this all to say is just to help you, to know that, like, to just show a way to be able to navigate through all that. We're not at the mercy of all the stuff that happens. We have the power within. All right, and so let's dive into another piece I want to talk about, where it says, choose a job you love and you will never have to work a day in your life. Now, here's another area where we kind of experiencing this conflict of interest, a compromise here. The essential part of doing something I genuinely love, where I lose track of time, and yet playing the game of life where a big component is survival. And just seeing how a lot of people, and I've been there, of in a job because of just like the work is comfortable, but it may not be in our best interest. There may not be much fulfillment there. Sometimes I think about people who work for the government. I'm sure there's some people that enjoy their part, and that's great. But then how many people are just like, in a specific example, working for the government, and they don't feel like that sense of like fulfillment, all because of survival and fear. Fear is a big one. Fear is a big one. A very big one. Because that's the kind of stuff that really can keep me can keep me from moving in action. And so, like, and I get and understand that there are some barriers to, like, that can prevent, it can make it difficult. Like, how can I find myself in a position of doing something I love and get paid for at the same time? That can seem like a far-fetched dream. Like, there's no way. That's just deluded. It's not reality. It is at this point when I want to bring up the importance of the last sentence that was shared here. There are no limitations. If you buy into that and think that you can't find work fulfilling, and you get your needs met, and you get exactly what you need, ask yourself, am I buying into limitations? Like, genuinely ask that, like, and think about that, because we don't have to buy into limitations. That's not what part. Again, another commonality of why we're here on this beautiful planet called Earth, this school, is to outgrow limitations. That's another component of our spiritual helpers, our spirit guides. How they got to the place that they are right now is that they outgrew limitations. Because as a soul, we're limitless. We're limitless. We're limitless. No limitations. Right? Because think about it. We're one with God. When we think of God, we don't think of limitations. We think of limitlessness. And so, that being said, you are one with God. You are God. As much as I am, as much as the neighbor, as much as the homeless person in the street, they are one with God. They are God. This is oneness. This is what I've come to understand about oneness. It's not some airy-fairy type of thing. What can seem disconnecting is that people get so caught up in their intellectual things and ideas and theories, but lose touch of the feeling. bringing that feeling of belonging into everything. That's power. I've achieved that on several occasions. That feeling of belonging. So when it comes to, like, you doing something you love, right? You might think it's BS and there's no way. This guy's full of shit. What does he know? Well, whatever you think about yourself, whatever you think about me and yourself, because there's a reflection there, then then you're right. It's like if you think I'm being stupid, you're right according to you. If you think I'm sharing some bits of knowledge, like something actually genuinely, like some real stuff there, true to yourself, and reflect that to yourself. Whatever you say about yourself, you're right. Oh, I can't do this. I'm just inadequate. I always get it wrong. And You're right. Oh man, I kind of made him a little. I kind of screwed up a little bit here, but you know what? I'm letting this be a stepping stone to help me be a better person tomorrow. I'm not letting this thing define me. You're right. So whatever you say, whatever you tell yourself, you're right. Because that goes back to your own power as a soul. Whatever you tell yourself, whatever you see about other people, you're right according to you. Now, what I want to say to that is that just make sure whatever you're telling yourself about yourself and other people, make sure it's serving you and not working against you. And you'll know if it's working against you. All you got to do is check how you're feeling. How do I feel? That's a surefire way to know if it's working for you or against you, baby. Something else that I want to talk about that was interesting, where it says, it's not hard, it's just gravity. And this goes to habits. When I've been so accustomed to, let's say I'm so accustomed when I'm going out day to day, and I'm so used to just frowning and looking so damn serious and all with like a tense face. I'm setting the how do I put this? Like with the habit and whatnot, I'm kind of setting myself up so that if I'm trying to do something that's meant to be light and simple, I start bringing that habit of like tension, clenching, trying, like I have to be careful because that's where I start experiencing difficulties, right? Like I'm saying this to say, like, when it comes to working with my intuition, why I find myself having challenges with it is because I don't know about you, but for me, I was definitely conditioned in my school to just, develop my intellectual part, but left my feeling intuitive part out. Which, like, that we all have. We all have this feeling intuitive part. And working with it is simple and easy. I think back on my as a child. I was very in tune and connected with my feeling part. But going through the school systems, the conditioning happened and all that stuff. And then what was meant to be simple and an innate childlike part, thinking back to my childhood, now all of a sudden becomes difficult because of that habits, the programming, conditioning. Now, take into consideration when I mentioned the limitations. Now, if I have a habit of limiting myself because of what I've heard from families growing up, friends, and what they say about XYZ, money, and all this is hard, relationships is hard. What does that do for you, Or at least kind of bringing this for myself. What me as like the receiver of all this, what does that set up for myself, Again, there's a bigger picture to it all. But it's recognizing that, going back to limitations, be wary of them because oftentimes they're not yours. I would even say none of it is yours. The limitations perhaps you have on yourself to say, like, going back to the job example, maybe like I said, whatever your concepts are, you're buying into it and you're right. But you can change that. You can change that. But it's such an interesting thing because of that limitation right there that would make things hard for me. Working on my intuitions, limitation can creep up and be like, man, I feel like that's because I have challenges at times discerning messages from my guidance. But on the same token, I've had successes when I've picked up messages from my helpers. Much success. And so that right there is like a beautiful dance and something that me personally are the beautiful challenges I'm working with and how I show up. This is my way of living. Everybody's way of living has a price. There is no free lunch in the universe, as my mentor would say. The way of putting it is like there's consequences. Actions have consequences. And we're not just talking about, but actions beyond just what I say, do, whatever, but also what I think about, how I feel in my inner world. All that has consequences. And that's why I'm at a place where I need to be more responsible and intentional about what I think about what I feed my life energy into, the ideas, the concepts. If there's any limitations there and I feed into it, then I'm just limiting myself. I won't ever see beyond that. It's like being in the trenches and I won't see anything higher because I'm so caught up in whatever it is, the limitation. That's what it does. It just keeps me in the trenches. It keeps me low. But when I've worked with my intuition, my guides, and other like-minded people, I've been able to rise myself up in the perspective to see of what's possible. How can you know if you've never been up higher? And when I've gotten at the place of seeing things from a much higher perspective, it really, man, it shifts a lot in me. It's that kind of thing that has helped me go through some tough points in my life. Seriously. And some of it health related. Others is just like within myself, emotionally related. I don't know if you can kind of feel what I'm getting at, because that's really the important piece there. I can talk about this, but it's not about theories. It's about from the experiences. And I'm just all this to say, I'm just sharing of just what I've been putting together so far in my own experiencing of life. So if I'm so used to like making a grouchy face on a day to day and not give people a nasty look, that takes more. It takes more muscles to frown than it does to smile. Maybe let me give you that perspective. It takes more muscles, and this is like this is a biological thing. It takes more muscles to frown than it does to smile. Now, ain't that a load of spiritual truth? And how, when it comes to working with my inner, it's meant to be with ease, smoothness. It doesn't have to be hard. Like, think about like living life, like life purpose, for example. I know for me, I would make it like this weird, like grandiose, this thing that is like hard, like I have to figure out. Like there is a bit of figuring out, but it's like I get to this point of like overcomplicating it. I'm applying the tendency of just having a tight face and like frowning to something that's meant to be simple. Which, by the way, something to give you that simple perspective, right? When it comes to purpose, like for example, or at least to kind of like to just not an example, but to kind of teach here for life purpose. If you want to know if you're living your life purpose, if you're doing what you've come to do, check and see as of late, how often are you having more up days compared to down days? If you have more up days, you're on track. Now, if you have more down days, then that just simply means you need to make an adjustment. And oftentimes it could be in the form of shifting your thoughts, shifting how you feel, or making some kind of shift in your physical environment. It's not much, but it's super simple. And that's where, having said that, when it comes to living spiritually, man, it's really part of the essence is simplicity. If I start complicating shit, it's not spiritual. It becomes intellectual, emotional, roller coaster type of thing. That's not the way. That is not the way, in my opinion. For anybody, for that matter. It is not the way. So just be careful with the limitations. And this is where it's the inner work is so essential to pin down those limitations you may have within yourself. you know, and like I said, like unless you've kind of seen any other way or higher way, how can you ever know? But I think the key for that is to stay open. That's it. Stay open to the possibility. Spirit will show the way. Spirit, your team will show you. That's part of why they're there. So, like, if you find yourself in a rut, like, I don't know what the hell to do. I got this, and that. Okay, I hear you. I hear you. Stay open. Or if you're not open, open yourself up. Consider. And if you want to consider, I don't know what your relationships with like your team of spiritual helpers. I don't know if you feel like you feel guided by them, or if you feel like I don't know if I have anybody. But play around with that idea if you're that individual to consider that and see what shows up. Openness goes a long way, even if it's just a little bit. That's enough for the waters of spirit to come in to cleanse out those limitations that can come up. Allow that to enter through you, to cleanse you. And once you've achieved from that feeling perspective, you felt it. You've seen it, you know it, you understand it. Up from that higher place, now you've pushed the threshold even more, thus gaining back more of your own personal power and freedom. That's kind of how I see it. And it's like the more I'm going through life experiences and life's challenges, I'm unlocking more of my own freedom and power within me, that where initially when I started out, I was already doing well, but the conditioning put me in a situation where I cut myself off and I constricted all that within myself. So I think part of life too, when we're growing in the healing, is really tapping back into unlocking and expanding my sense of freedom, my sense of autonomy, and to do so in such a way where I keep it light. To never allow, when I'm going through life situations, to harden my heart. Because that's no way to even go about it too. That's certainly not the way to live purposefully. I don't have to let life make me feel irritable, because I've got more reasons to be joyful. And when I go by, I share that with people. I give people a smile because I know, I understand. And if you do, that's great. If not, stay open. And one day you'll do. And when you do, maybe you might remember these words. Maybe you might remember me. Oh, Alvin, in that podcast, he was talking about, just understanding, just like there's more good things and all that stuff and spiritual. And in which case I'm all grateful for. I'm just doing my part and just sharing the message. At times I'm just a mouthpiece, sharing the good message like many of us are doing. And I'll say this, especially like with going back to limitations. I mean, there have been times where I feel like there's like that saying, fake it till you make it. And I feel like there's truth to that in terms of like being able to work through the stuff, because if the habits have been so bad, these limiting habits, limiting thinking perspectives or thinking patterns, and trying to take that step to go in a better trajectory, at times it can feel like a lot of effort because of the habit I put into, of just the not so good stuff. That really, going back to the smiling and frowning piece, it takes an exhausting amount of energy within myself to entertain and indulge in the bad habits than it does to actually put into the good habits I have. And I would say when I actually put energy into my good habits, it's like I tap into an extra reserve of energy within myself that I never knew was there. And all of a sudden I find myself being able to move in all my situations, maintaining my high energy, staying centered in myself, still relating with people, right? I'm not ignoring people. I'm working with it all. It's part of what it's about. Working with everything. It's not about forgetting the material. No. It's about working. It's about living in two worlds at once. The spiritual and the material. Because that's what happens 24/7. As long as we're here, that is. In this physical body. We're always living in two worlds at once. And it's about mastering that. And I'm just a person that has been doing that for quite a while now. And this is what I'm gathered so far to share with you, my friend. And so, getting back to the theme of belonging, if you're listening to this, you belong out there in the skies where the eagle soars, where the eagle soars and flies with ease and joy and fun from a higher perspective that it can see that not many other people can see. If you're listening to this, you're an eagle. Else you wouldn't be attracted to this podcast or even just give an ounce of your time to even listen to this goofball talk. Like attracts like. What you see in me, you have in you. And so, as we're beginning to wrap up the episode, you belong. You belong. No matter where you set yourself out towards, wherever your opportunities are, wherever it is you work, perhaps your social groups, like you belong. And I think it's important that what I would want for you is to feel that and to be able to take that with you everywhere. Even in places where you're not getting that welcoming energy from other people, where you don't feel like initially belonging, but you can tap into that feeling of oneness. And to repeat again and to reemphasize, you know, when it's to truly belong, also means you retain your sense of self, your individuality, who you are. And that has to also be met as well too, honoring your loyalty to yourself, because that's a very important foundational relationship. If that's weak, then it'll start affecting all your other relationships. If it hasn't already, give it time. So this is where the the importance of learning to, or actually loving to learn type of thing, like it mentions here in the text, and I think such an important thing, at least for me, part of my way of life and how I show up is that I look at situations like learning and growth. Not all the time, mind you, because there's also just moments to just be had, memories to build, that has a place too. But I think the important thing is like if you allow yourself those opportunities from time to time for growth to happen, reaching for the sun, right? Think about the tree example I mentioned, to grow in your own weird shape like everybody else, you know, that's necessary because, why, at least I want to share here too, um, why I emphasize a lot of growth is because it's a need. And in the past, if I'm not growing, then I start to experience that feeling of death and just lifelessness. Like it's a genuine need. So I think the learning and growing is part of the relationship building with yourself. And if you allow yourself, open yourself for more unfoldment, no matter where you are in your life, you can always turn it around. Just be careful of that person in your head that's like, oh no, it can't happen. No, I'm not. Because if that happens, you say, hey, shut up. You don't tell me what to do. You're not right. Because it is just a voice in the head. What do they know? They don't know anything. Especially because when you know from your heart center what you feel, what you sense, what you understand, what you see, that takes precedence over those voices. Like, oh no, you can't. Now, yes, I can. Yes, I can. I can do it. I am right. You can do it. If you believe that, I tell you, you're right. 100%. You're right. And truly, indeed, there are no limitations except the ones that just we buy into. So, but we can always outgrow them. Again, just that openness and just working through it. Just give yourself that time. Just little moments each day. It's not a whole lot. And my intention for you and all this is just like like how I've been feeling is just a lot more fulfillment, a lot more enjoying the simple things and just playing the game. And that's really what this is all about. I mean, I've shared a lot. It's like, what, 40, 44 minutes now into this recording? All this to say, right, is if I had to say something about that, is to play the game. Play the game while you're here on this planet, in this school. And so I'll leave it there, my friend. And if you made it this far, I truly appreciate it. I hope you got something out of it. Even as I was sharing all this, I'm like, I'm going to re-listen to this episode myself because I feel like I shared some good nuggets here and there that I may have to revisit. And in which case, too, on the same token, I invite you to listen to this episode again if you feel like you need to, because that's what I do sometimes on other podcasts, other people that I resonate with. I'll find myself re-listening certain things because sometimes, you may never know what may pop out at one point. You come back to it, then something else stands out to you. That's your sensitivity in action. And that's something that tells you, okay, this is what I'm working with. This is what I'm working on. So if there's anything that stood out to you in this rather long episode for today, that's for you. You take that. And I leave it up to you, and I trust that you'll know what to do with it, how to work with it. But if you're not sure, check out the resources I've laid out for you in the show notes if you want some help with that. But that's just simply an invitation. You can take it or leave it. And so this has been another episode of the Spiritual Engineer Podcast. I'm your host, Alvin Cepeda, signing out. And as always, take care, my dear friend.